Hi again. So let's start looking at chapter 1 of your BPP course notes. Chapter 1 relates to chapters 1 and 2 of your ICAW study manual. So what are we going to examine? What are the learning objectives of this particular chapter? Now, the first one is to explain the general objectives of financial management. Then we need to explain the roles played by different stakeholders in the financial strategy selected by a business. Then we have to go through and explain the decision-making process, how we select and justify investment appraisal techniques, and how do we choose appropriate values to use in investment appraisal, take into account taxation and inflation as well. And then we are going to recommend and justify a course of action based on the results of the investment appraisal method that we have used. Definitely we have to consider as well other relevant non-financial factors, including the limitations of these techniques. So this is what this chapter covers. Now, what are the exam requirements? So definitely in the exam, you may be required to discuss the likely objectives of various stakeholders, and you need to be in a position to comment upon how conflicting objectives might be reconciled between the different stakeholders. You may also be asked to set out the relevant cash flows of a decision. These are cash flows which are directly related to a decision, including tax and inflation. And then you need to be in a position to decide whether or not to make an investment and to discuss the financial but also the non-financial issues surrounding such a decision. So let's start looking at this. As I already explained to you, this chapter 1 relates to 2 chapters of your study manual. This part of the chapter is chapter 1 of your ICAW study manual, and the other part is chapter 2 of your ICAW study manual. What we're going to do today is to look at chapter 1 of your ICAW study manual. So we're going to look at the objectives. Okay, so let's move on. So what is financial strategy? Now, financial strategy is concerned with the financial implications of the business strategy. Now, business strategy is concerned with how the business will achieve its objectives. And strategic planning addresses the long-term direction of the business. Now, what is a major objective of a profit-making business? The major objective is to maximize shareholders' wealth, to maximize the wealth of its owners, in other words. And to achieve this, a business should be in a position to take a number of decisions. In this particular module, financial management, we are going to look at 3 different decisions which affect the wealth of our shareholders. We have the investment decision, the financing decision, and the dividend decision. These decisions are interrelated. Investment decision affects also financing and dividend decisions. So what is the question that we need to address in respect of the investment decision? The answer, of course, is very simple. We need to be able to answer the question, what projects should we undertake to create wealth, to increase, in other words, the wealth of our owners, of our shareholders. And to do that, we need to apply different investment appraisal methods like net present value, internal rate of return, payback, and accounting rate of return. Since now we are going to undertake a new investment project, definitely we are going to need money. So we are going to need finance. So the next question is, how should we finance these projects? And again here, there are 2 options. One option is to raise long-term debt, okay? Or the other option is to use equity funding. Equity funding means funding which comes from the owners. So this would be either the ordinary share capital issue, and of course retained earnings. These are internally generated funds which belong to the owners. So this can be used as well to finance new projects. Now, of course, you have to realize that to be in a position to finance projects using retained earnings, it means that you have to use these internally generated funds for this finance, while owners might expect to receive dividends. So the question here is that what should we do with the money we make from these projects? So shall we keep them in the form of retained earnings, or shall we offer them to our shareholders in the form of dividends? And it's obvious that businesses which offer a lot of dividends, that means that these businesses do not keep a very high levels of internally generated funds within the organization, and therefore if these businesses want to raise additional finance, either they have to go for the long-term debt or they have to go for the issue of shares, since the retained earnings would be very, very low. Now, let me give you an example to explain this interrelationship between those three decisions. So some years back, we had a company, which still of course exists, which is called Ryanair. And Ryanair at that time decided that it wanted to expand. So it had to take a number of investment decisions. And since the decision here was to expand, either the business had to buy new planes, right? Or the business had to take over other businesses, other airlines, take over other airliners. Of course, you can realize that these type of decisions would make the business to need money, financing. So the question was, okay, from where are we going to get this finance? And of course, this resulted to look at the financing decision. Now, what Ryanair decided to do is to use mostly internally generated funds, in other words, retained earnings. And because Ryanair decided to use retained earnings, it means that Ryanair decided that it won't be in a position to offer dividends to its shareholders. So use mostly retained earnings. In other words, i.e., keep dividends to almost zero. And of course, this would have resulted that the business will not borrow money from external sources. So that would have resulted to low borrowing. And of course, as we already mentioned, this financing decision would have affected the dividend decision, the dividend policy, if you like, that the business was going to undertake. So what is the dividend decision? As I already mentioned, by offering low or no dividends. So as you can see, by looking at this example, the investment decision made the business to think how these new investments were going to be financed, and Ryanair decided that it wanted to finance these new investments by using internally generated funds, retained earnings. This resulted to take the decision, the dividend decision, that this business shouldn't offer any dividends or very low dividends to its shareholders, so as to retain any funds generated for investment. Okay, so these three decisions, as I mentioned earlier, are interrelated. Now, the next thing that we need to look at is we need to examine which are the stakeholders of a business, of a profit-making organization, and what are their objectives. So let's move to my notes and examine this particular area. Okay, so we have different stakeholders. Now, when we say stakeholders, these are either individuals or organizations that they care about the well-being of our business. And the reason why they care about the well-being of our business is actually because they care about themselves. So in other words, the existence of our business benefits them as well. So which are the stakeholders? Actually, we have three different categories of stakeholders. So we have the internal stakeholders, the connected stakeholders, and the external stakeholders. So who are the internal stakeholders? These are the stakeholders that they work for the organization, and these are the directors and managers and employees. Now let's look at the directors, managers. What are their objectives? The existence of our business will help them to maximize their rewards and benefits. This will allow them to increase the power and esteem that they enjoy due to our business, due to the existence of our business. Now, our employees, again, they care about our business because if our business performs well, they will enjoy benefits. They will enjoy, and of course, benefits means salaries and other benefits, and also they will enjoy job security, which will ensure continuity of their employment. Now, other stakeholders are the connected stakeholders. These are the stakeholders that they deal with our business. So, equity shareholders, these are the real owners of the business. Why? Because these are the ones that they will be exposed to the highest risk if something goes wrong with our business. And of course, the reason why they care about the business because they want to maximize their wealth. Another stakeholder are the banks and lenders. So these are the long-term payables. Now, they offer funding to our business. So they will require from our business to provide them with security. That means these loans will be secure on assets of our company. And of course, they would like our business to be able to generate cash flows which will enable the business to meet its interest payments and the capital repayment when the time is due. And also, the existence of our business will generate them, will offer them, if you like, better long-term prospects. In other words, these stakeholders will continue the business relationship with our business, and they will continue enjoy benefits because of this relationship. Another stakeholder are the trade payables, the suppliers of our business. Now, usually these ones do care mostly for the short-term liquidity of our business. Why? Because the money that the business has to pay to them falls due in less than a year. So if our business performs well, this will ensure that their trading relationship with our business will continue and they will continue enjoying the benefits of this relationship. Another stakeholder, of course, are the customers of the business. The continued business relationship with our customers will make our customers enjoy the benefits that our business offers. All right? And of course, finally, we have the external stakeholders. These are indirectly affected by our business. Government is one of those. If our business performs well, this will help the government to sustain the economic growth and also will offer jobs. So this will means reduction of the unemployment rate. In addition, if our business behaves properly, this will help the government to deal with any environmental issues and any social issues. More jobs, less social problems. And of course, if our business performs well, this will allow the government to impose tax on the profits and will enable the government to enjoy more benefits. Now, another stakeholder, of course, is the general public. Again, the general public cares about the business and looks at the behavior of our business in respect of the environment. And also, if the business performs well, it means that this business will help the general public to reduce any social problems that might be created by offering the jobs to the people around working within the business. And finally, we have the unions. Again, they care about their employees. So if the employees working for our business will enjoy the benefits. Now unions will be happy as well. All right. Now, what we need to understand, of course, is that all this, as most probably you have realized, is that all these stakeholders have different objectives. And of course, there are two stakeholders that we need to examine in more detail. And these actually are the owners, all right, the owners. These are the equity, if you like, these are the equity holders, okay, these are the shareholders, and the directors, managers. So we need to examine those in more detail. So let's look at this. Now, most probably, of course, you already know from your law studies that between them there is a principal agency relationship. Now, what does this mean? It means that the principal, of course, are the shareholders and the agents are the directors, managers. And based on this relationship, the directors, managers should act for the best interest of the owners. Now, what happens though in some cases is that instead of the directors, owners acting for the best interest of the business, they act for the best interest of themselves. And this creates what we call the agency problem. So what is the agency problem is when we have our directors and managers, instead of acting for the best interest of themselves, instead of acting for the best interest of the company, the owners in other words, they act for the best interest of themselves. And this creates this agency problem. So examples of agency problem, there are a number of examples which I have listed here, which you can read by yourselves. I'm just going to explain one of them, and this is when we have a potential takeover. So what happens here is that imagine that you have another business which wants to buy our business, and this business makes a very good offer to the shareholders of our business. Strictly speaking, the managers, if they were acting for the best interest of the owners, should have advised our owners to sell their shares. But instead of doing that, they advised them to do exactly the opposite in an effort to safeguard their own interests, because they know that if this new company comes in, the new owner comes in, if you like, then there is a good chance that they might lose their jobs or the benefits and power that they used to enjoy. So in that case, instead of advising these owners to sell their shares, they advise them exactly to do the opposite, not to sell them. So that creates what we call the agency problem. And of course, the agency problem creates what we call agency cost. So where interest conflict, directors may act in their own best interest rather than the interest of the shareholders, and that's what we mean agency cost. Okay? Now, the question is how the agency problem can be alleviated. So are there any ways that we can reduce this conflict? The answer is yes. We can achieve that by providing to our directors, managers remuneration schemes so as to achieve what we call goal congruence. And these schemes could be either profit-related pay or share option schemes. Okay, that's all for today. We are going to talk about the next session later on. Thank you.